Hey, creative. Are you ready to discuss profits, the money, the ways to make it happen? The Profitable Creative Podcast is for you, the creative, how you define it. Videographers, photographers, entrepreneurs, marketing agencies, you get it. CEO of Core Group and author Christian Brim interviews industry experts, creative entrepreneurs, and professionals alike who strive to be creative and make money at the same time. Sound like you? Tune in now. It's time for profit.
Welcome to another episode of The Profitable Creative, the only place on the interwebs where you will learn how to turn your passion into profit. I am your host, Christian Brim. Special shout out to our one listener in Mexico City. No puedo traducir en español, lo siento. Anyway, thanks for listening. Joining me today, Joshua Thompson of Bright Beam SEO. Welcome to the show, Joshua.
Thank you.
In my very poor Spanish, I said I can't translate into Spanish, so yeah. I can't translate the show. You're going to have to listen to it in English. So, Joshua, you have a company called Bright Beam SEO. What is it exactly that you do? I mean, SEO is kind of in the name, but
Sure.
Lots of people do SEO. What's your niche?
Yeah, local SEO, so more focused on local businesses and even more so focused on home service businesses. That's the majority of what I do and I focus on.
And I'm assuming you didn't start out there, that was kind of a journey that landed you there. Speak to that.
Yeah. Well, so early, internet, well, for me, I guess, early 2000s, I, was getting involved in the internet, started a financial leads generation type of business. That led me to starting an addiction treatment center. For a while, I ran the SEO and marketing for that.
Okay, pause.
Yeah.
Pause. I'm sorry.
I get that's a leap.
That's too hard of a branch there. How did you get from point A to point B?
Oh, yeah. No, I just decided one day to start. No, obviously, that's not the case. Yeah. So, I started the financial. So, I've always been I guess I was inclined to be entrepreneurial ever since I was a kid. That was kind of instilled in me, in my family. So when, around, 21, started doing some financial stuff, right? That was family members were involved in that. So getting leads for family members was helpful for them, right? Something we could get going. So I did that. And then, I had a very good friend who got involved in using substances and was having struggles. And he had found this kind of crazy miracle cure kind of thing that worked really well for him. So he started getting involved in that. He knew me. He said, "Yeah, you want to help me out?" I said, "Yeah, that's what I do, is just kind of like to say yes to opportunities." So I ran the marketing for his business for a little bit. That whole thing crumbled, and me and an individual that he was employing at the time went off on our own and started this. So I ran all the marketing, right? I mean, at the end of the day, as somebody who is running marketing, I don't need to know everything about the service itself, right?
Right.
I can run marketing for pretty much any company as long as somebody is doing the service and the fulfillment. So I ran the marketing, the website, ads, all that kind of stuff for that for a while. And then I sold my portion of that. And that's kind of how I ended up over here. So,
okay. So how did the evolution progress that you were working in the local space and the home service space?
Yeah. So I was doing, SEO. SEO was always my primary interest. I just always found it to be so odd and so much benefit if it could be done right. It's just like a giant Rubik's Cube puzzle, right? So that always just was interesting to me. So when I was running this addiction clinic, I would continue to go through the same process of, I want to find somebody who does SEO really well, going to hire a company, getting a salesman, getting transferred to somebody else once I purchased it, realizing this person I was talking to didn't even do SEO, right? They just sell me a service that, likely they have no involvement in.
And the
SEO
salesperson's answer is always, yes, sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Right, exactly. And it's just like a giant disconnect between the sales process and then what I would get at the end of the day. And they'd start, running the service, and it would be the same as the last one, right? The same stuff. And it was like, I can do this way better than these people are doing for my business. So then I'd take it over. I'd start to do it. I'd get overwhelmed with just how much marketing I had to do. And I kind of went through that cycle a few times where I was like, I'm just going to focus on the SEO and have other people help me run these. Well, in the story, Google cut off. There was a big thing that happened about, it's got to be like 10 years ago now, where Google got hyper involved in the addiction space because there were so many people selling leads through Google Ads. So we actually got cut off. And because I was one of the few people in our market that was doing SEO, all of a sudden we went from this really highly ad-driven environment to basically most of our competitors just going out of business overnight, and us being in the top now 3 of the in our service because we had been doing SEO. So that changed the game for me. So I continued to invest in SEO. I was spending more time in SEO because we couldn't run ads. And yeah, so once that ended for me and I got out of that business, I was asking myself what to do. I always wanted to have an agency, but never really kind of had the time. I had some friends who had local businesses that needed help. I started helping them, and it just kind of naturally progressed to me starting an agency and wanting to help more people, help more clients, right? Expand. So that was how I got local too, because most of those companies were local services. Okay. So then AI rolls around, and it just kind of turned out that I'd made some good decisions, because now the national SEO has been hyper affected, and local businesses, people still have to find local services. So
yes,
I've largely dodged that bullet up till now.
Yeah, it is interesting. I've talked to a lot of people that have been around since the inception of the internet and AdWords and all of these things. And, the constant theme that, if you can figure out the algorithm, if you can figure out how to crack the code, there's a lot of opportunity. The flip side of that is that you don't control the algorithm. And so they right. can switch it, and then you're screwed, which it sounds like, is your story. But yeah. And, the home service space is one of those non-digital spaces that is not themselves affected by technology very much. I mean, they do, but not the same way you and I do, right?
The world of bits.
Yeah, so that industry is protected, right, as well. So it's not like you're trying to get leads for a local accountant that their industry might be experiencing pressure from automation and AI. Not right now, but definitely in the future. Whereas like your HVAC guy, they're still going to have to go out to the location and, turn a wrench.
Right.
Was that part of your thought process in selecting home service, or?
No, not really. Yeah. I mean, it has become.
I like it when you make guesses and they're right. I like that.
Yeah. I was just going where, like I said, I like to say yes. If I don't know something, but it's in a world that is interesting to me, then I'm going to say yes. I'm going to go figure it out. Right. I just think there's so much benefit to that. That's been such a great benefit to me in my life of just saying yes to opportunities and moving forward with those, right? So it just was naturally kind of happened. And then, yeah, it turns out in hindsight, it was not a bad move.
Yeah.
But, I was not predicting any kind of fear. Am I going to sit here and act like I'm some kind of genius radio talk show host that's predicted the future 100 times here? It just is what it is.
Well, okay, so that's interesting. You say you like to say yes. I know from my journey, my entrepreneurial journey, that I like to say yes has caused me some problems. Has it ever caused you a problem saying yes?
Well, I think over the last few years now, I've started learning. Yeah, now I'm going the other way. Now it's saying no. That's
yes.
That
yes, no, yes.
Yeah. Yes gets you, yes gets you down the road. Then no, it gives you the speed and velocity, right? As you continue forward, because what I've done is gone from a marketing company to more home services and more SEO specific, right? And continued to say no and chop things down because every business is so different. Everything's becoming hyper specialized, and I'd rather do a much, much better job for a select few businesses than, saying yes is the weird way to phrase it. But I think at some point you have to start saying no and start specializing and focus in if you really want to do a great job. Just businesses are too different. There's too many different things happening. So I don't know. That's not maybe a great answer.
No. I think it's actually a great answer because I agree with you. There was a book, you look old enough to have read it, when it came out, The Long Tail.
Okay.
When they were talking, I think it was, the case study was around Spotify, I think, but I don't recall. So it's been a while. But it talked about how the technology has, and it was talking specifically about music, but I think it applies to virtually every business, is that, the left side of the curve where there's popularity hasn't changed. Like, the Taylor Swifts are still going to sell their millions of records, just like Michael Jackson did. Like, that didn't change. What did change was because of the cost going down. On Spotify, you had this uber long tail of artists that just produced, a few downloads, right? And that's what I think you're alluding to, is that tail is stretched out in all businesses, and the customization, if you will, to niches. You take home service as an example. All right, so 20 years ago, you could probably be just a plumber, right? Maybe you specialized in residential or commercial, right? Maybe you specialized in new construction versus rehabs. But now you see, like, a plumber can say, I'm the toilet guy. If your toilet's clogged, call me, right? That's the kind of specialization that I think you're referencing, and I'm talking about.
Yeah. No, that is actually very pertinent to the current meta, if you will. And the funny thing is, everyone's instinct to solve their problem is to go broader. And I think you have to deny yourself that instinct. Everyone's always much more concerned with the client they're going to lose than the extra client they're going to get. So you see people who are, they're not doing very well yet, right? And like exactly in the plumbing. And instead of, I think, the toilet reference, I think the better way to look at it, in my opinion, is based on geography. you have a plumber who's in a city and they're not getting enough, right? There's competition around them. They're not getting enough. So what do? The solution is to go open another location that does somewhat poorly in another area, and they continue to spread themselves broader and broader, or they add a service, right? Okay, now I'm going to do water heaters. Now I'm going to do HVAC because I need to expand. But that's where you dilute yourself, and you actually make it harder for then, to
people to find you
for and to get all of those synergies come with condensing things down. So I think you have to ignore that. Yeah, kind of have to ignore that human tendency to try to get more by broadening and worrying about people you don't have, and really continue to chunk down into being specialized. I would say more city and service. That's where it is on the Google side, at least. Right.
Yeah, because people don't hire a plumber. People don't hire an accountant. People don't hire an SEO agency. They hire a solution to their problem. And so you define that problem very clearly, like my toilet's clogged.
Yeah.
And then it's easier for them to find you and to buy from you, because I'm not getting confused with water heaters or a remodel or new construction or anything else that might come into play, right?
Yeah,
we've struggled with this, and I'm interested in your opinion. This is the first time I'm sharing this publicly, and I'm doing it with you, Joshua. We defined our target market 3 years ago loosely as creatives, and we took internally. So we said any creative. And that was pretty much anybody that was self-identified as a creative. Like, there are verticals like, agencies, videographers, content creators. Like, there are verticals that are defined in there, and we picked a couple to play in. But I almost feel like, so this year we haven't been seeing the growth that we want, and I almost feel like the problem is, and I've had this discussion with my leadership team, is maybe we haven't defined the target market small enough, right? Maybe we need to pick one of these verticals and market just to them, like videographers or agencies. What are your thoughts on that?
That is very interesting. I mean, look, I'm not going to act like I understand your game that well, because look, I'm not a marketer. I'm a reverse engineering specialist, right? So my job is to go figure out what people are searching for and then target it. So I think I don't know how people find you. Is it based on search? Is it based on hearing? Do you try to get people to share? I mean, I guess that would be the question: is how do people find you generally?
Yeah. So first is referral. Second, is organic, and third is social, which I would say SEO plays in that organic space, right?
Yeah, 100%. So a search.
Basically. I mean, there definitely is volume there. It's probably not. And this is the interesting thing when you start looking at search queries, the more specific you get, obviously the fewer searches there are, right? I mean, that makes sense.
But you can rank for them.
Exactly.
If you rank 99, on a huge search, it doesn't do anything for you.
Accountant near me, for instance, that's a horrible place to be, because it's very general, and you're going to get people you don't want as clients, right? So we gave up on one. We don't do local because we're a national firm, right? We've got clients in 43 states, so local doesn't work for us. But I wish it did. But maybe it could. I mean, like maybe we're looking at this the wrong way. Maybe my understanding from Google's paradigm is that is fixed to a location. So like, I guess if I went and opened up a bunch of Regis offices and got them approved with Google in these areas, I could use local. Is that an accurate statement?
Once again, I think you just want to reverse engineer what Google is giving people and then figure out how that applies. So, if I'm searching for a podcast or information, it's unlikely that there is that Google is going to show local results. You can always test that. But if Google isn't showing local results, then there's not really a big reason to try to grow local results, right? So you just have to kind of look at what's being pushed, and then how do you get into those right areas. I would guess local wouldn't work as well because.
So to clarify, the local is Google's GMB, right? Yeah, are we talking the same thing?
Yeah, right. Well, you'll see that search results do the same thing. Google Business and search results, right? They can be like. There might be a situation where you say, this is a good one, like, how much does it cost to build a home in certain city? And even though Google might not push the map ranking, the GMB, the 3-pack right at the top, you still may be getting a lot of results from that local city area. Even if you just search how much does it cost to build a home, you might get localized results in search. So localized doesn't always necessarily mean maps, right? The search itself, AI, all of that can be taken from local, depending on how Google already is assuming what people want, right? So there's a lot of local searches that are not locally centered, meaning the city is not in the search, but Google is still going to show you local because it assumes that might answer your question, right? So it just, though, once again, you can just do the searches. That's the best way to find out anything. Do your searches and see what is showing up. Is it localized? Is it not? Is there a map pack? Is there not? That usually is going to give you a pretty good indication of whether or not you want to target locally.
Hey listeners, are you ready to turn your passion into profit? Then grab a copy of Profit First for Creatives. Click the link in the show notes to purchase a copy. And if you're not ready to make that full commitment, you can download a free copy of the first chapter. Check it out right now.
Hey creatives, Delana Ely here. I had a question for you. If you could pay yourself more, why aren't you doing it? For real. S Corp is an option for you, the creative entrepreneur, to move your business to the next level, to pay yourself more, and to cut your tax savings down. Yeah, less money to the IRS. We want that, right? So why haven't you done it yet? What's going on? The reality is you probably have 50,000 questions in your brain. You don't know which way is up and down, and you're still too busy to do all those things, plus also create, right? Well, the good thing for you is that Core Group is actually the place to be to get that S Corp election rolling. Yeah, we have an assessment. Let's see if you qualify. Come chat with me. Core Group, turning passion into profit.
Okay, I want to pivot and ask, since you've started this agency, what are some of the challenges that you encountered that you had no knowledge that you didn't know?
Sorry, I'm still thinking about your keyword research.
I'm sorry, you're trying to solve. You're trying to solve my problem.
Yeah, let me just ask: do people search? Do you target search? Do you target like podcast search? Like, are you targeting searches on a podcast platform? Is that typically how a lot of people find you?
No. Organically, and attribution is a squirrely thing, right? Because you don't know where they have touched you before they actually searched for you.
Right.
But we use a local SEO guy not local SEO. He's just lives here.
Yeah.
And I'll be very honest with you. I have no idea what he does because I'm not the one that does that. So I don't know the answer to your question. I said it. When we said at the very beginning in the green room is like, I don't know is an acceptable answer, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the interest. I think you're on the right track, right? That if you want to rank quicker and simpler for specific keywords, then niching down is always going to help with that, right? That will help you hit that target. So I think it's a really good way to consider it. But I think you have to go, at least from my perspective, you want to make sure that you're looking at searches that have the volume if you're going to niche down, right? You don't want to niche down into something that you're inventing because then no one knows to search it. But otherwise, yeah. And I think the word creative is interesting in the way you use it because I think a lot of people don't realize they're creatives or wouldn't think of themselves as creative, but you're calling me a creative, which I think fits me, but I might not know that might not be something I really consider myself unless you explain to me, here's why you're a creative, right? Otherwise, I just think I'm an idiot that can do computer stuff.
That's a fascinating point because I came to this realization when I started writing my book, Profit First for Creatives. So I went to Mike Michalowicz, who wrote Profit First, and I said, I'd like to write this derivative book, Profit First for Creatives. And I was thinking like all the other derivatives are like Profit First for optometrists and Profit First for lawn care, or, they're very self-describing of who they're written for. And so I was thinking, well, like he's never going to approve this because it's too broad. I mean, what the hell does that mean? Creatives.
Right.
To my surprise, he'd already got his publisher to approve the title because someone had come to him a year before to ask about that title, but they didn't end up licensing it. But as I was writing the book and working with my editor, I had to have a very clear understanding of who I was writing the book for, right?
Right.
And I write about that in the introduction about like who it is for. But bigger picture, I talk about this in the book. All entrepreneurs are creatives, and I think there is a certain stigma with people like you and I that are more analytical, right? You said an engineer. Engineers and accountants are cousins. They are. That's why we don't ever take engineers as clients. They make awful clients. Sorry.
No, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
No, it does.
Too much sense.
It really does, because they're just going to tell you how to do. They're just going to tell you how to do your job, right? It's like, anyway, there's this stigma of being identifying as a creative, and I struggled with that for a while. Perry Marshall, in a hot seat in a live event in Dallas, called me an artist. And I took umbrage with that, sir.
Yeah.
I did not like to be called an artist. But the way he defined it was, he said entrepreneurs are either builders or they're artists. And I've had a subsequent conversation with him in this podcast about like how I see that really as a continuum. Builders see an opportunity and a problem solution and an opportunity to make money, and that's why they do the business. Whereas artists are passion driven. There's something else there that they're filling their cup with in doing the work that they do. And so artists by definition are more exclusive. Like I'm not going to go I could go get an 8A certification with the SBA because I am Choctaw, and I could go bid on government contracts, right? I purposely chose not to do that because, like, I don't want to do that. Can I make money? Absolutely. But, like, it's not my primary motivation, right? I have to be interested in what I'm doing. And so from that perspective, looking at it as a continuum, I lean towards the artist side. And so after he explained it to me, I'm like, yeah, I can agree with that. And so if I described it that way, would you be more comfortable being called a creative?
Let me say this first. You're not bad at marketing and you're not behind. You just need a better approach. I'm Lauren Tilden, host of Making Good, the podcast that helps small business owners stop overcomplicating marketing and start doing what actually moves the needle in their businesses. Making Good has short, practical episodes on showing up consistently, building relationships, and turning attention into sales, all without burning out or chasing shiny objects. If you want marketing to feel simpler, kinder, more sustainable, and most importantly, more effective, search Making Good in your favorite podcast app.
No, and I don't have any problem with the word itself. I think I am very much a creative, even if it's not necessarily a direct relationship to the work that I'm doing. I just think, in your particular situation, most people, like you're, it's a problem of, once again, the reverse engineering side, that they're not already calling themselves that by nature. It's
you're
not
100% right.
You're right.
No.
The other piece I think about the creative that's interesting is anyone who does identify with what you're talking about right now, those people are probably freaking out because of the AI stuff. So even more, if your podcast might be getting hurt or might not be growing as much, it might be just that everyone who does identify as a creative in the business world is losing their mind collectively and worrying about what is going to happen to my life.
You're 100% right.
Getting out of this, do I need to change like tomorrow? Because like you said, videographers, designers, graphic designers, they're, it's
right. And I no, you're exactly right. Like I've kind of created my own problem, but I knew it. Like I knew it going into it. And you don't ever want to be in a position where you have to convince your prospect that they have the problem that you solve. And that's really where, as we're having this conversation, is kind of giving me some clarity on that. Because, okay, let me unpack this and get your opinion. Victor Ching in Extreme Revenue Growth writes about what he saw are the necessary components to have revenue growth in a business. And he starts with the customer. So you have to have a customer that has a problem. That's the first thing. The second thing is they have to know they have a problem. And then the third thing is that they have to be willing to pay for the solution to the problem. Okay. And what we're struggling with as a company right now is that third piece. And, because if you're going to say, does everybody have a finance and accounting problem as a business owner? Yes, everybody has that problem. Do they know it? Most of them do, right? So then it's getting them to be willing to pay for the solution. And that's where we're struggling, because I'm like, I know those people exist out there that would be willing to pay for the solution, because we have lots of clients that have raised their hand and they're raving fans. They love to refer us. But it's finding those people that are willing to raise their hand and say, yeah, I would pay for the solution. That's where.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm not a raving fan of Hormozy, but I think the idea of the offer that people can't refuse.
Yes.
Like how do you have some kind of hook that gets people, is it like, here, let me show you how much you can save in 10 minutes, right? Whatever it is, right? I think that is a very spot on assessment of getting people in that first step, right? Is like, how do you get an offer or some kind of hook pitch where it's like, I need to see this. I have to see this information. It's such a hard game because I think few people do it really well in any industry. Mm-hmm. You have to be creative, right? In a way that you're not used to. Back to the creative piece, right? This is where you have to be creative. We're all creators because to do any of this stuff is creative.
Going back to our plumber analogy, right? Like if your toilet's overflowing, right? Yes, you have a problem, and you 100% are going to pay for a solution. Like that's the ideal situation. Right. But most businesses don't live in that space. Right. Where there's like, I need to throw money at you. Please come as quickly as possible. I need to, right? Most things don't rise to that level of urgency. If you got tooth pain, you're not going to haggle. It's like, I need this tooth fixed now. Right. But that doesn't describe most of our situations with our prospects and customers, right?
So from your perspective, do people hit that point? I mean, I guess they do, right? They just hit the point where their finances are so far out of control
what we're doing is we came up with last year. We retooled our service offerings again. We tweaked them. It wasn't so much of a wholesale, but one of the service offerings that we're focusing on is those entrepreneurs in creative industries that are at the point where they could save money if they did an S corporation. Okay. Yeah. It's a very clear distinction. Like, they're not a side hustle. They're not a startup. They're making money. And, I'm really tired of paying this much in tax. And so we designed the service offering. We really just tweaked it. And then the marketing messages around it, we changed that. The fundamental service really didn't change much. Right. But to your point, you're addressing a specific problem that they, and this is the thing, they may or may not perceive it. There's a lot. What we saw was there were a lot of companies adjacent to our space, like Gusto, the payroll provider, that were marketing S Corp, which I found fascinating. So, well, that's interesting, right? And so we think the need's out there, and we think other people are marketing to it, and so we're trying to slide into that. But if you're going to take a specific creative business owner out there, are they looking for the solution of an S Corp? No. We're looking for that pain point of, I'm tired of paying this much in tax. This seems like a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally understand. And that's where I think marketing is so interesting from that perspective, because in some cases you have to create the need for the service because people don't know about that solution, right? They would never even think to search for that solution. They just know, this isn't working well for me. Somebody please help me. So.
Yeah. And that is what's fascinating, is because one, you have to be thinking in terms of what they're thinking, not your solution, right? Like, what is the symptom that's keeping them up at night, like the nerve pain, right? That you got to figure that out, and you have to describe your solution in a way that they would understand it, right? Like it can't be technical jargon. It can't be features and benefits. They were like, "Can you make my tooth stop hurting?" Okay, great.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's where it's like, you just need to keep. There's so many offers out there that people use. I see this in home services. It is so hard to come up with an offer. Like, I guess it's when you see an amazing offer, you recognize it, but it's so much harder to come up with something like that than people really give it credit. They try the standard 5 or 10 offers everybody else does, and then they get, lackluster or decent results, and they kind of stop iterating because it is so hard. And I think about this all the time. You have to basically start a fire with no matches. Marketing, really, really good marketing is inventing a spark. And I don't do that. I don't do that. My job is to figure out what people are searching for. I'm catching a baseball. I got to put my mitt in the way of the ball where it's going to go, and I got to put my hand up. Otherwise, marketing in this fashion that we're talking about, which is where you have to try to get that spark to get people to come through the door. Because I'm sure once you get on the phone with somebody or whatever, you'd probably do a great job because they have the problem. It's just getting that initial, it's, like you said, I think the effort from the person on my end to go through it, like, I don't want to go through that process with you, right? I know it could be beneficial. I like it. It's great, but I don't want to do it. It's a bunch of work. I want to ignore it. Next year I'll deal with it, right? And then, year after year, I'm getting bled by tax problems and, finance issues that
the reality
me slowly.
The reality is that people don't make a change, which would include buying something, until the pain of the solution, which that could be just, I got to do something different. I got to go find the solution. I got to pay for the solution, until that pain is less than the pain they're experiencing currently, right? That's it. And which goes back to our examples of like nerve pain. Like I'm there. Like I don't need any persuasion that I need to change this. And marketing, I find fascinating because at the end of the day, you're trying to predict human behavior, and humans don't act rationally. In fact, they're predictably unpredictable, right? And that's why I said to all the creatives out there that are worried about technological changes, even if you're a designer, like none of that matters, because the technology doesn't solve the fundamental problem of trying to understand human behavior.
Right.
And AI is trash at it. I mean, it's awful.
Just tells you what you want to hear.
It's just like Facebook. It just feeds you back more of what you get. You give it. Yeah. Okay, you're not going to get off the hook with my question though. What were some of the things that were challenges that you didn't know would be challenges?
Like
going into starting your own agency, what were some of the things that stick out of like, God, that I really didn't predict, didn't know, and it sucked?
I think, that's really interesting. Look, I would say at my core, I have this Buddhist type philosophy, and I have, gone through ADHD and growing up, like in what I would consider to be difficult for me to learn things, difficult circumstances as far as, being frustrated with myself. I have put such a perfectionism on myself that I don't know if anything exterior to me ever is as devastating as my internal self. So, I'd say my whole focus, my goals, everything that I do often comes internally with this drive for self-control, this drive for like, even just working a certain amount of hours, right? I've been, all this year, I've been doing 60-hour weeks as like a self-control mechanism. So I'd say the biggest problems have been personal in like self-control and all those. And those have been such monumental changes that the business problems I run into were just, I guess, fun. I enjoy solving those. I mean, feel like I've come so far in my life over the last years that I don't know if there's one thing specifically I can say that was like, oh, that was really hard. I genuinely enjoy all the stuff that I'm doing and get to do. I mean, I just feel like I'm so lucky to be able to like own a business and grow it. It is, I feel like there's no other level for me of like personal growth and putting myself into the world and becoming a better person than having that control, right? To build a business.
That's very interesting that you went there, because most people, including myself, don't start with looking internally. They look externally and look at the problems of the business rather than the problems with themselves, right?
Yeah.
The reality is the business can only be as successful as you allow yourself to grow. You said self-control, which is interesting, because I think I have this theory, and my colleague, entrepreneur colleague, who is now a doctor of clinical psychology, he sold his business for like 9 figures and decided that he was going to go back and get his degree in psychology. And we had this conversation as he was going on this education journey, and the reality that I believe, that I experience and I see in others, is that most people start a business to solve some problem they have internally. They may not have a conscious awareness of it. It might be like, I grew up poor, I don't want to be poor anymore, right? Like I don't know what it is. It's unique for each individual, but the business becomes their coping mechanism to deal with this underlying thing that they're trying to fix. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, but here's what Dr. Patel's data on entrepreneurs found. There is a tight correlation between the time that people are in business. So the longer they are in business and entrepreneurs, the more emotional connection they have. In other words, another way to say that is that the crucible that is entrepreneurship, the challenges that it brings, gives us the vehicle, the mechanism to fix those things in ourselves if we allow it. Like if you quit, you don't. But if you're in it longer, you actually start to heal yourself and solve this problem.
That seems very like Maslow, right? Like as you get to do the things that you want to do, and in a growth way, you're kind of finding your purpose, which comes from self-control. Control, I guess, controlling your time, right? Like putting your own time into the things that you choose. But, and I think self-control is an interesting, I guess I should say self-mastery, because control is one of the things that I'm dealing with right now, right? Like I am right now going through letting go of control a little bit, like having a manager who helps me run the team, and they have some control over what the outcome is. And that has been so hard for me. But those are all, the things you run into in your business, like you said, like I was saying, I think they stem from you, right? And as you become a better person, I guess it's weird to say it that way, but I guess as you understand yourself and overcome those hurdles that are in your way, then your business gets better because you allow it to have the, like for me, I have to give it the breathing room of not controlling everything in order for it to grow.
And no, you hit on the first, what my friend Drew Goodmanson calls entrepreneurial inflection point. And it has to do with control, and it usually presents itself in the symptom of delegation to other people, right? But ultimately, it and for me, it was like I have to be comfortable letting someone else do it differently than I would do it, and I accept the consequences of their actions. That was a big hurdle for me, right?
Yeah,
and it is, and most entrepreneurs stall at that point. They're like, because I can't get over that. Like, I'm fine with someone doing it differently than I am, but I don't want to take responsibility when they screw up, because that sucks.
Right.
And I figured this out when, my children are grown adults now, but when my first daughter started to reach about 12, I realized that control is an illusion. Like, when they're toddlers, it's pretty easy, like they do what you tell them to do and they're there where you left them. And, but as they get older and they start making their own choices, you realize that, this control that I thought I had is actually an illusion. And I think that wisdom of discerning what you really can control versus what you can control is critical. Because we focus on things that are largely out of our control. I fell into it again this year. And the way that manifests itself is fear. And you start acting out of fear, out of this thing that you really have no control over. And so you have to acknowledge that, I can't control it. What can I control?
The interesting thing about business is that you build something that you can control until it gets big enough that you can't control it. And you have to start backing out slowly of what you're controlling so that you're controlling the most important things. That is, I think, what I've been running into, because it's funny you bring that up. The first idea that in my mind really resonated deeply with me was in around middle school, early high school, reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and The Circle of Influence, which is where he basically lays out the idea that there's things inside your control and outside your control. And too many people spend all this time worrying about stuff that's outside of their control. And I've always liked that. What I'm realizing now, though, is that in the case of business, if you do well, things that were inside your control go outside of your control because it gets too big. I can control 10 clients myself, right? With my effort, everything. But as that gets bigger, I have to let go of control and try to manage. But, and I think this is a great segue to the end. The first addiction clinic that I talked about at the beginning, the reason they failed is because the owner could not let go. Literally, if he would have just gone home, he had all the pieces. He had a manager. He had me doing all the marketing. Everything was in its place, but he could not relinquish control. He had to have the control and the drama. I think too many people find their self-fulfillment in having a title. I am the owner of a company. And so if they have to have the title, they don't care about the business succeeding, I see, as much as they care about just being able to tell people they own a business. But if this guy just gone in home and just sat on his couch and said, send me the checks, he'd still be in business today because we were running that thing so well. But his control that he had to have just crushed the whole thing.
Which is going back to exactly what I said. He was trying to solve his problem of himself, of self-worth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. I'm look at me, I own a business. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was like 100%. Right.
I was just trying to say exactly what you were saying. That they're deriving something else out of it. Their goal is not to build a business as much as it is to derive some kind of personal or social benefit from being able. That's why they go into heavy debt, try to keep up this illusion that they're not there to work and build a business, right? They're just there to say, I'm a business owner.
And the penultimate entrepreneur, someone like an Elon Musk, right? They understand that their job is to figure out who, not how. They can find the right people, as Dan Sullivan's book is Who.
Yeah.
And your job is to make money off of them. It's not what you do.
The Henry Ford, right?
That's another one, right? Yeah. I mean, that's what you're driving for. If that is your true intent, is to be an entrepreneur. But I think most of us, and myself included, have used or try to or get sucked into the business being part of our coping mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, perfectionism.
Yeah. Joshua, this has been a brilliant conversation. How do people find out more about Brightbeam SEO and unclogging their toilets?
Yeah. brightbeamseo.com. Josh@brightbeamseo.com. Feel free. I'm always interested in talking more about business things.
Perfect. Listeners will have those links in the show notes. If you like what you've heard, please rate the podcast, share the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. If you don't like what you've heard, hit that button, send us a message, and we'll get rid of Joshua. Until then, ta-ta for now.
Thank you.